People, Deluded, I'm back again. Another day, another lunch break. Some people say I don't eat that much. I mean, that's a good thing. So yeah, what was I going to say now? I think I put this on my Instagram, so if you follow me on Insta, oh gosh, that's an ugly background. I apologize, people, but I think I put this on my Instagram. For me personally, of course, it's fantastic if we get Kieran Tierney over the line. Obviously, the main dominant transfer that's been over the last probably 48 hours, 48 hours excluding today, which is Monday, probably from Saturday, it's been Pepe, Saturday night, Pepe. If we get him and Tierney through the line, there's talk of Renagli on loan. If we just get a centre-half for this campaign in any capacity, whether it's on loan or not, that's a big plus for me, because for me, I was saying centre-half and left-back, everything else is a bonus, everything else is gravy sort of thing. So there's that regard. So obviously, if we can grab that, that's very good for us. Apologies, people. That's very good for us. Obviously, you've got Pepe, he would come here and be a maverick player. We don't have any dribblers at this team. He's a fairly competent dribbler and fairly good in the attacking third, to put it nicely. Obviously, Ceballos is a kind of a dribbler as well. So we've got people that are giving us greater attacking options. Obviously, Nelson is young and untested, really, and still developing. But Nelson, Ceballos, obviously Pepe, they give us some more options. Saliba next season is still developing, good centre-half long-term and things like that. Obviously Ceballos is only here on loan. So we've done quite well in the transfer market if the prospective moves go down, and just in general cut us some slack, really and truly, because we were a bit worried. Obviously with 10 days to go, people, it is very worrying in regards to the outgoings, because obviously we just want to see additions into our side. We just want to see players that can take us to a next level, or aid us, if not they can't do that now, aid us in our fight to get back into the top four and play to a suitable standard. So these players will kind of do that. We'd get a left back, we'd get a centre half. Obviously you'd have Pepe, which with Aubameyang and Lacazette and Ceballos and all the other creative players, regardless of if they're all on the field or not, can help us on our case. And if we look at that, it gives us reason to paint the market, our transfer market or prospective market, as being incredibly positive, and which it has been, people. It has been positive. But the outgoings, now, if it was just in terms of incomings and things like that, if it was just terms of incomings, then of course we've had a great window. Outgoings, we know we need to move players on. We know we need to get players off the books. Do I think it can be done in 10 days? I'm personally not sure if it can truly be done in 10 days, because there's a lot to be done. You see players on high wages, players that are actually, a couple of the players that we need to move on are contracted for at least the next 2 years. They're probably comfortable in London, comfortable running down their deals, so it is difficult. Personally, I think that if we can get Pepe announced and stuff like that, and Kieran Tierney and whatever centre-half, if another centre-half comes in, I think we might see more of a push in terms of outgoings, because of course we've got enough members of the backroom team. You've got Edu, you've got Hosfarmi, you've got Vinay, you've got Raul, you've got other people in and around the scenes that can do things for us. Edu, if I haven't said it, but at the same time, they should be able to handle incomings and outgoings. But at the same time, it is a long, dragged out, draining process confirming one signing. You saw what it took for Saliba, Ceballos. Again, people say Arsenal do take long to complete moves and things like that, and it's very well speculated when we make moves, which is true, but it does take a while, people, and we have had the tour, and give credit to the back room. To be fair, you don't know I'm a fair guy, I critique and praise fairly. There's a lot to be done. Of course, people can be in different sides of the world, and not everybody has to be involved in certain things for transfers to go down, but I'd imagine when you look at our technical room, of course, Raul can sign off for things that he doesn't necessarily need Hosfarmi to sign off on, but there could be things where he needs to be able to do this, he needs to be able to do that, and they're trying to juggle 1,000 things, people. Obviously, you heard the Be Excited, you heard Emre talk, so, and again, if the market ends and we ain't got these signings that have come in and players ain't gone, then we can talk, but I'm prepared to cut the club some slack. I do think if we can get these moves done early, I'm not saying players are definitely going to leave, but I'm saying we might see more of a push in terms of getting people out, because it does look like our resources are stretched, our time is stretched in regards to getting these moves done. Pepe is probably a long, dragged out process, and you've heard us, allegedly we're working with Mendes, a super agent, which is something that you didn't previously see under previous management or under previous CEOs and things, which on one hand you can say kind of ruled us out of talents. I say that, but then you look at Daniel Marlin, he was managed by Renola as well. Obviously Mendes dealt with us, so this obviously raises the prospect of possibly going and getting in some more different talents as well. We're going off topic, but I mean, I just hope that in an ideal world this week we can wrap up the signings of Kieran Tierney and probably Pepe. I don't know what centre half we're going for. Renagli is the latest link. But you've seen us linked with a whole host of centre-halves, players from Getafe, players from Torino, a whole host of centre-halves. If we can complete this week the majority of our moves, then that will give us a bit of time, because we've got 10 days left, and it is a push, people, to get these moves that are prospectively done, because obviously we're saying Pepe and Tierney, they look like they're coming to Arsenal. Until they're actually holding up the shirt, I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed, they're not Arsenal players. So we've really got to push in that regards, we've really got to battle in that regards, and then we might see some progress in outgoings. Maybe coincidentally, which I do assume, is that we've been trying to get interest, but like you've seen, apparently we've tried to sell Mustafi every window we've bought him, clearly no interest. Mesut Ozil, people not going to pay his wages. Mkhitaryan the same. El Nene and Jenkinson are still at the club, two who really shouldn't. And that's not me to criticise any of these players or knocking them, I'm just listing players that you think could be moved on. I know Ozil's a bit unique because he's been talking about as being the captain, and you'd like to think him and Emre, if he is going to be here, put their sort of beef to the side in the season. But I do think we'd see a greater push in a certain regards if we do get business done. Obviously, even with the Zaha thing, it didn't happen, but that was a long drawn out process, several bids, or a bid and then not a bid. Kieran Tierney, clearly there's loggerheads. The latest is that apparently the fee is not the issue, it's the structure. A lot of how we want to pay them is relating to Champions League performance bonuses. The latest report I saw is that Kieran Tierney's Celtic don't want to pay a loyalty bonus or certain loyalty fees that are due to Kieran Tierney should he complete this move. Again, I'm not saying that's the case, I'm just an honest football fan reading these articles and trying to make sense of it, really and truly. But there'll be no reason why. If we can, obviously we need to get, you would think you need to sort out outgoings first, and I do think we could have done a bit better, but I don't know what the club's done. The club, from the moment the window started, the club could have tried to push on players they need to push on, but I can only comment on players not here. It would be fantastic to bring these players in, because obviously Pepe, Kieran Tierney, whatever centre-half, surely any centre-half could do better than what we had last year to a degree, excluding Holding and to a degree Socrates. If Emre can be given a platform, obviously with them, with Ceballos, with the Torreiras, the Guendouzi's, the Aubameyangs, the Lacazettes, he's got players that he can work with. Of course, just new signings isn't going to mean we're going to get top four people. Coaching defensively first and foremost, because regardless of it being a makeshift back four or not, for me, I'm looking at if we're being proactive in our approach to defending versus reactive. We're still leaving people unmarked at corners. We're still allowing too many shots based on pre-season. I'm not reading too much into it, but if you're not seeing, for me, I've told you lot several times, I'm not expecting us to defend like a prime Italian side. I was expecting over pre-season to see that we're thinking a bit more. Like, for instance, not to name drop them, but Joe Willock and Callum Chambers, it could have been any players. Them two switched off, in my opinion, for Dembile's goal, his headed effort. Maitland-Niles could have stopped the cross. There were several errors before it got to that point as well, but none of them picked up Dembele. So what I'm asking is that in pre-season, you picture Chambers now, again, not critiquing Chambers, if Chambers was proactive and thought, okay, cool, Dembele's free, let me get to him, or Willock thought the same, let me get to him and try and mark him, and they got out-muscled or whatever, what could I say, people? Because they tried, innit? They tried, but I'm still seeing some of the same mistakes. And of course, when you've got a makeshift back four, some players are here, some players are injured, people are starting pre-season at different rates, you can't read too much into it. But that's what I wanted to see. So in an ideal world, if Emre can be given some good additions, start coaching us to be better defensively first and foremost, offensively we have to improve, we can do something decent, people. But until that happens, it's all oohs and ahs and wishing on a star, to be fair with you. The outgoings, I mean, I'm keen to see how Mustafi features next season. Realistically, if he doesn't leave, he is going to feature quite heavily in this season. You'd like to think this would be his last year because he's contracted until 2021. Raul Sanllehi obviously has a mandate. If you're in the last 2 years of your deal and we don't know what's happening, you've got to keep it moving. Because I personally feel we've done a better job in regards to our young players. Like, I wanted Amici to stay. His future's been, apparently he was at loggerheads with the club. His future's been resolved. He's gone to Hamburg. We need to get, certain players needed to go out on loan. You've seen Ballard, Tutu, Shave, probably see a bit more go out on loan as well. There's talk of Bielik going as well permanently. So sad to say, the likes of Bielik, El Nene, possibly Mustafi. I think Mustafi's going to stay. Koscielny's future definitely has to be sorted out, and I personally don't believe there's a way back. We'll never know what was said. Emre obviously will keep saying that it's a matter of the club and he's made his decision. You know how Emre don't get in the nonsense. He's always on that vibe of it's the club's business. It might not affect Emre directly, but you are hearing comments that this wouldn't happen under Wenger. You are hearing problems in relation to how much Koscielny allegedly was played last season, which I can't understand, because for me, Emre's done a good job. People have spoken about, me included, you being finished, not being of the standard to contribute positively. And yeah, you might have played a lot, but Emre played you when everyone thought you was past it. Sometimes you actually let him down last season, and he still played you. So I think that's quite cowardly. Same shit, different day. I personally think that's quite cowardly of Koscielny, and I don't feel you can afford to have him in the squad, because he's poisoned, in my opinion. It's gonna rub off on other players. Of course, bygones can be bygones, and Koscielny's, as I keep saying, he's valid in his claims to go on, want to go elsewhere and do what he wants to do with his career. But for me, in that squad, if he gets away with this and he's back in the squad and bygones be bygones, it's a thing where if I'm one of them young players or another experienced player, I'm gonna be looking at Emre and be like, yo, listen, Koscielny disgraced himself as captain and you're letting him back in, so what's he going to get away with? And then that's probably going to fizzle into the players. Of course, I'm not speculating, but for me, that's meaning. Of course, they could make up, and Koscielny never does this, but for me, Koscielny has to depart the club. It's over. So in short, I like to think when we get some, again, I'd like to think it happens regardless, but just for me, my thinking is, when these signings are more or less confirmed, then maybe we'll put in one last push, one last diversion of all our attention towards possibly moving a few of these players out of the door. I think Mustafi will stay purely because hopefully we bring in a centre half, but there's speculation over we're not going to bring one. So for a body, he would probably stay. Probably, if Koscielny departs as well, aiding the case, because it's unrealistic to assume that both Koscielny and Mustafi are going to depart the club. So we'll see what happens in that regards. But for now, my lunch break is done, people. I've got to bus out. People, DG, I'm out. Thank you for watching and rocking as usual. Let me bus out now.